Hi, my name is Nick Alves, and today I will be highlighting African-American influencer Bishop Walters. Almost 21 years before its formation, a news editor named T. Thomas Fortune and Bishop Alexander Walters founded the National Afro-American League. Although the organization would be short-lived, it provided the foundation for several other organizations to be established, leading the way for the NAACP and ultimately an end to Jim Crow-era racism in the U.S. Alexander Walters was born in 1858 into a slave family in Bardstown, Kentucky, the sixth of 8 children. By the age of 10, Walters had shown such academic progress that he was awarded by the African Episcopal Zion Church a full scholarship to attend private schooling. In 1877, at the age of 19, Walters received his license to preach and began his pastoral duties in Indianapolis, Indiana. In his career as a pastor, Walters served in cities across the country, including Louisville, San Francisco, Portland, Oregon, Chattanooga, Knoxville, and New York. In 1892, as a minister at the 7th District of the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church, Walters was selected as bishop. Until his death in 1917, Bishop Alexander Walters continued to remain active in his leadership of Emmaus Church affairs and maintained his devoted support as a formidable civil rights advocate of the late 19th and early 20th centuries.
Hi, my name is Eric Parnell. Today I will be highlighting African American influencer Robert F. Smith. Robert F. Smith has a net worth of $5 billion and was born in Denver, Colorado on December 1st, 1962. He graduated from Cornell University with a bachelor's of Science in Chemical Engineering, as well as a MBA from Columbia Business School. Smith worked at Goodyear Tires and Rubber Company, Air Product and Chemicals, and later at Kraft General Foods as a chemical engineer, where he registered 2 United States and 2 European patents. From 1994 to 2000, he worked for Goldman Sachs in technology investment banking, first in New York City and then in Silicon Valley. He advised on mergers and acquisition activity with companies such as Apple and Microsoft. To empower technology companies in the enterprise software market, Smith launched Vista Equity Partners, a global investment firm, in 2000. Today, Smith is Vista's chairman and CEO. Under his leadership, the firm portfolio has grown to include some of the world's leading enterprise software companies. As of May 2020, Vista Equity Companies now has $57 billion capital commitment. This would make Mr. Smith the wealthiest African American man in the United States. In 2019, Smith pledged to eliminate $34 million of student loans debt for the Morehouse College graduating class that year.
Hello, my name is Redrick Hill. Today I'll be highlighting the African American influencer Booker T. Washington. Booker T. Washington, born April 5th, 1856 through November 14th, 1915, was a prominent black educator, author, and leader of the late 19th and 20th centuries. In 1868, 12-year-old Booker T. Washington found a job as a houseboy in the home of the wealthiest couple in Malden, General Lewis Ruffner and his wife Viola. Miss Ruffner was known for her high standards and strict manner. Washington, responsible for cleaning the house and other chores, impressed Miss Ruffner. A former teacher, with his sense of purpose, a commitment to improving himself, she allowed him to attend school for an hour a day. Enslaved from birth, Washington rose to a position of power and influence, founding the Tuskegee Institute in Alabama in 1881 and overseeing the growth into a well-respected black university.
Hi, my name is Erica Kendall. Today I will be highlighting African-American influencer Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. No Black History Month would be complete without the mention of Dr. King. Born on January 15, 1929, he fought to advance civil rights before his assassination on April 4, 1968. In his 39 years, he served in the roles of husband, father, pastor, leader, and activist. One of his many notable accomplishments included the peaceful March on Washington in August of 1963, leading and addressing in excess of 250,000 people. On the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, King delivered his impassioned I Have a Dream speech, in which he challenged a divided nation to unite by considering the content of character over color of skin, a message equally important today. For his efforts, King was honored in 1963 as Time Magazine's Man of the Year. At the age of 35, King won the Nobel Peace Prize, and he used his $54,000 prize in the furtherance of the civil rights movement. Our country made great strides thanks to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Hi, my name is Ann Burton, and today I will be highlighting African-American influencer Elizabeth Keckley. Elizabeth Hobbs Keckley, February 1818, died May 1907, was an enslaved only child of her mother Agnes, a light-skinned house slave whose white ancestors were aristocrats. Keckley's mother, named Aggie, had learned to read and write, even though it was illegal for enslaved people. Elizabeth Hobbs Keckley learned that her father was Armistead Burwell from her mother just before she died. The nature of the relationship between Agnes and Burwell is unknown. He permitted Agnes to marry George Pleasant Hobbs, a literate enslaved man who lived and worked at a neighbor's house during Keckley's early childhood. Keckley was owned by her father, Armistead Burwell, and later his daughter, who was her half-sister, Anne Burwell Garland. Elizabeth Keckley made clothes for 82 people, 12 members of the Burwell family, and 70 slaves. When she became a seamstress, the Garland family found that it was financially advantageous to have her make clothes for others. The money that she made helped to support the Garland family of 17 family members. She asked Hugh A. Garland to free them and his wife Anne to put the conditions in writing in 1955. Elizabeth Lizzie Le Bourgeois, her patron, took up a collection among her friends to loan to Keckley, who was then able to buy her and her son's freedom, and was manumitted on November 15, 1855. The papers indicate that she was married to James Keckley by that date. She stayed in St. Louis until she repaid the $1,200 loan, after which she intended to leave St. Louis and James Keckley. Keckley employed 20 seamstresses at her 12th Street business. Keckley met Mary Todd Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln's wife, on March 4, 1861, the day of Abraham Lincoln's first inauguration, and had an interview the following day. Lincoln was known for having clothes with floral patterns, bright colors, and youthful styling. The dresses made by Keckley for her were more sophisticated. Lincoln chose her as her personal modiste and personal dresser, which began when Lincoln was quite upset and overwhelmed about getting ready in time for an event at the White House. Keckley founded the Contraband Relief Association in August 1862, receiving donations from both Lincolns as well as other white patrons and well-to-do free blacks. The organization changed its name in July 1864 to the Ladies, Freedmen, and Soldiers Relief Association to reflect its expanded mission after blacks started serving in the United States colored troops. The organization provided food, shelter, clothing, and medical care to recently freed slaves who were called contrabands because they were not legally free people and considered seized property or contrabands of war. The association became lost to history, but it set the standards and showed the need for relief organizations to provide aid to the poor and displaced black community. The work of the association within the black community helped create black autonomy. Through intra-ethnic networking, the association created an organization by and for African Americans. After the American Civil War, Keckley wrote and published an autobiography, Behind the Scenes, or 30 Years a Slave and 4 Years in the White House, 1868. It was both a slave narrative and a portrait of the first family, especially Mary Todd Lincoln, and it was considered controversial because the information shared about the Lincolns' private lives. The book portrayed Lincoln as a loving wife and mother and an ambitious, strong-willed, and loyal first lady, while also revealing her to be high-tempered, full of fear and anxiety, self-centered, and often self-pitying. In May 1907, Keckley died as a resident of the National Home for Destitute Colored Women and Children, which she helped found in Washington, D.C. On May 26, 2010, 103 years after her death, a marker was placed at Keckley's grave in National Harmony Memorial Park.
Hi, my name is Azaria Watkins, and today I will be highlighting the African-American influencer, Thasunda Brown Duckett. Thasunda Brown Duckett is the Chief Executive Officer of the Chase Consumer Banking. She is a member of the Consumer and Community Banking Leadership Committee. Chase is one of the largest U.S. providers of banking, lending, treasury, wealth management, and investment services. Duckett oversees a banking network with more than $750 billion in deposits and investments, 5,100 branches, 16,000 ATMs, and more than 47,000 branch employees, including more than 3,000 financial advisors serving 23 million households nationwide. From 2013 through 2016, Duckett was the CEO of Chase Auto Finance, one of the leading bank providers of auto finances in the country, with a portfolio of more than $60 billion in assets and relationships with 75% of U.S. franchise automotive dealers. Under her leadership, Chase Auto Finance moved from number 27 in the GD Power Dealer Finance Satisfaction Survey to number 1 in prime and non-prime. She broadened its dealer partnership and launched Chase Auto Direct, the bank's new direct-to-consumer business. Prior to Auto, Duckett served as a national retail sales executive for Chase Mortgage Banking, where she managed 4,000 mortgage bankers who provide home financing to consumers across the nation. She was previously Mortgage Banking's East Region sales team for 3 years. She also served as the channel executive of bank branch integration and as a director of affordable lending in emerging markets. Before joining J.P. Morgan Chase in 2004, Duckett was a director of emerging markets at Fannie Mae, where she led the implementation of national strategies designed to increase home ownership among African American and Hispanics across the country. Duckett has been recognized widely as a leading executive in the financial industry. She was named as the top 100 leading female executive by Automotive News, one of the most powerful women in banking by American Banker magazine, one of the 50 most powerful women in corporate America by Black Enterprise magazine, and among the top most influential blacks in corporate America by Savoy magazine. Duckett is a founding member of the firm's Women on the Move initiative and the executive sponsor of the Fellowship Initiative in New York City. The enrichment program run by J.P. Morgan Chase offers young men of color academic, social, and emotional support, help them achieve personal and professional successes. Duckett is originally from Texas. She holds a bachelor's degree in finances and marketing from the University of Houston and an MBA from Baylor University. She is married and has 4 children. She and her family live in Connecticut. That is Miss Duckett.
Hi, my name is Amy Rieger. Today I will be highlighting African American influencer Victor Hugo Green. Victor Hugo Green lived in Harlem, New York, and worked for the United States Postal Service. He recognized the restrictions segregation placed on African Americans and developed the Negro Motorist Green Book. At the time the book was published, choices for lodging, restaurants, even gas stations were limited for Black Americans in many places, both in the South and out of it. In the book, Green reviewed hotels, gas stations, and restaurants that did business with African Americans in the South during Jim Crow and racial segregation. Between 1936 and 1966, 15,000 copies of the book were published each year. Green went on to open a successful travel agency as well.
Hi, my name is Theo Mansell. Today I'll be highlighting African-American influencer A.G. Gasson. Mr. A.G. Gasson was a businessman who lived in Birmingham, Alabama. He played an important role in the segregation of Birmingham. He owned several businesses, from motels to a funeral home. The Gasson Motel was a safe place for Dr. King and other civil rights leaders to meet. When Bill Coroner had Dr. King arrested, Mr. Gasson posted his $160,000 bond. By the 1960s, Mr. Gasson was the richest African American in the U.S.
Hi, my name is Amy Robinson. Today I will be highlighting African American influencer Charlotte Grimke. Charlotte Louise Bridges Fortin Grimke, known as Lottie, was born August 17, 1837, and died July 23, 1914. Grimke was an African American anti-slavery activist, poet, and educator. Grimke's parents, Mary Virginia Wood and Robert Bridges, members of the prominent Black Fortin Purvis clan in Philadelphia. Fortin was educated by private tutors as her father did not want her to attend a public school. This was a privilege only wealthier families could afford. Later, Fortin moved to Salem, Massachusetts, where she joined the Salem Female Anti-Slavery Society. In 1856, she entered Salem Normal School to receive instruction and teaching. Her first teaching position was at Epps Grammar School in Salem, becoming the first African American hired to teach white students in a Salem public school. In the 1850s, Fortin became increasingly involved in the abolitionist movement. She published several poems in the anti-slavery publications, such as The Liberator and The Evangelist. She also called for Black women's participation in the abolitionist crusade. She joined circles of significant abolitionists, such as William Lloyd Garrison and Lydia Maria Child. In 1861, after Union troops occupied parts of the coastal Carolinas, federal authorities recruited Fortin and others to teach emancipated African Americans on the Sea Islands of South Carolina. Her diaries, written before the end of the Civil War, have been published numerous times in numerous editions in the 20th century and are significant as a rare record of the life of a free Black woman in the antebellum North. Her role in the community reached beyond education. She was also a song leader, a storyteller, a nurse, a Sunday school teacher, and a companion to the elderly. She was one of the few Northern Black teachers to chronicle her time on the islands. The Atlantic Monthly published her work, Life on the Sea Islands, in May and June of 1864. After the war, Fortin taught in Boston, Massachusetts, and Charleston, South Carolina. In 1872, she moved to Washington, D.C., where she taught at a preparatory school later known as Paul Laurence Dunbar High School. 1 year later, she became a clerk in the Treasury Department. At 41 years old, she married Reverend Francis J. Grimke, a former slave and a minister of D.C.'s 15th Street Presbyterian Church. They had one child who died in infancy. From 1881 to 1886, the couple resided in DuPont Circle, Washington, D.C. In 1896, Fortin helped found the National Association of Colored Women. Throughout the 1890s, she published poems about D.C., including At the Home of Frederick Douglass and the Corcoran Art Gallery. Fortin remained active in the civil rights movement until her death on July 23, 1914. Highlighting African American history, Charlotte Louise Bridges Fortin Grimke.
Hi, my name is Amy Koval. Today I will be highlighting African American influencer Dr. Carter G. Woodson. Born on December 19, 1875, near New Canton, Virginia, to formerly enslaved parents, Dr. Carter G. Woodson was a prominent early 20th century historian, author, and journalist. He was one of the first scholars to study the African diaspora and is widely recognized as the founder of Black History Month. He was also a skilled writer, authoring over 27 books and articles, including The Miseducation of the Negro. As a youth, Woodson did not receive a steady formal education. Farm work took priority, causing him to miss large portions of the school year. However, he was determined not to be deterred by this setback. Ambitious and motivated, he used self-instruction to master common school subjects by age 17. After finally receiving a high school diploma, Woodson became an educator. Eventually, he would earn a PhD from Harvard University, becoming the second African American to do so after W.E.B. Du Bois. In 1915, Woodson helped found the Association for the Study of Negro Life. The purpose of the association was to help the public better understand African American historical contributions. A year later, the Journal of Negro History began quarterly publication. In 1921, Woodson formed the African American-owned Associated Publishers Press, a publishing company that took on works that other companies would not, such as Black scholars writing about African American life, history, and similar subjects. Woodson believed that history was made by the people, not simply or primarily by great men. With this in mind, he proposed and developed the annual observance of Negro History Week. Launched on February 7, 1926, Negro History Week was a celebration of African American contributions to the advancement of human civilization. Woodson did not see this as a new tradition, but rather an expansion of pre-existing celebrations already recognized by Black communities. Negro History Week was well received, and by 1976, it was expanded to Black History Month. However, due to its importance to America, Woodson hoped that Black history would eventually be recognized all year, instead of being relegated to 1 week. Woodson died April 3, 1950, at the age of 74, leaving behind a lasting legacy. The major role Woodson had in making African American history a recognized and significant field of study is undeniable.
Hi, my name is Johan Russell, and today I'll be highlighting an African American influencer named David L. Stewart. David L. Stewart has a net worth of $3.9 billion and was born in Chicago, Illinois in 1951. He graduated from Central Missouri State University in 1973 with a bachelor's degree in business. Upon graduation from college, Stewart worked at Wagner Electric as a production manager, a sales representative at Missouri Pacific Railroad Company, and a senior account executive at Federal Express, where he was recognized as Salesman of the Year and inducted into the company's Hall of Fame in 1981. The companies that he has owned are Transportation Business Specialists and Transport Administrative Services in the years leading upon to founding Worldwide Technology. He has also founded Telco Buy, a global technology and supply chain management company. And his greatest achievement is being CEO of Worldwide Technology. Worldwide Technology is a technology service provider founded in July 1990. Worldwide Technology provides technology and supply chain services with a focus on enterprise commercial, public and telecom service provider sectors. WWT for short has been built to and valuated at a staggering $12 billion. Wow. He is one of the only black billionaires in America, being that there's only 5. So, wow.
Hi there, I'm John Oxford. Today I'm highlighting African-American influencer and playwright August Wilson. He is America's Shakespeare. You don't sing to feel better, says the title character in August Wilson's play, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. You sing because that's a way of understanding life. You get that understanding, and you done got a grip of life to where you can hold your head up and go on to see what else life got to offer. The blues help you to get up out of bed in the morning. to get up knowing you ain't alone. There's something else out there in the world. Something's been added by that song. Of all the lyrical, poignant, and heart-stopping passages that Wilson wrote in his career as a playwright, that one may serve best as his mission statement. Wilson made his life's work and his world-class art out of the drive to document, explain, and ratify the everyday lives of African Americans, and to treat those experiences with epic ambition. Between 1984, when Ma Rainey premiered to rapturous reviews at the Yale Repertory Theater, until 2005, when he died tragically at the age of 60, Wilson produced what he called the American Century Cycle. It consisted of one play for every decade of the 20th century, a trajectory that went from the aftermath of slavery through the Great Migration and Civil Rights Movement to the dawn of gentrification. Wilson's body of work stands as one of the greatest, aside from Shakespeare, in the history of dramatic literature. For artistic fertility and consistent excellence, he is the only American playwright worthy of comparison to Eugene O'Neill, and the only African American writer in any genre who belongs in the company of Toni Morrison. His 2 Pulitzer Prizes, multiple Tony Awards, and New York Drama Critics Circle Awards merely formalize the recognition of his talent. Born in 1945 and raised in Pittsburgh, self-educated since his teens and inspired by the Black Arts Movement, Wilson set nearly all of his work in his home neighborhood of the Hill District. Yet it was only when he moved to the largely white St. Paul, Minnesota in his 30s that he began to fully hear and channel the spoken word poetry of the musicians, preachers, gamblers, jitney drivers, and sanitation workers among whom he had lived. With the American Century Cycle, Wilson transmuted their voices into art for the ages. And in 2016, Denzel Washington directed and starred in the film adaptation of Wilson's first Pulitzer-winning play, Fences, bringing that masterpiece to its largest audience ever and starting the process of putting the entire cycle onto the screen. Something indeed has been added by Wilson's song.
Hello, my name is Jessica Green, and today I'll be highlighting African American influencer Jesse Jackson. Jesse Jackson laid the foundation for electing a black president, one of the signature achievements of the 21st century. Jacksons are the biggest shoulders that Barack Obama stood on. This is not a conventional wisdom, it is true. It begins with Jackson's decision to run for president himself in 1984, widely seen then as an act of symbolism and arrogance. Black leaders had been discussing for years what it would take to seriously compete for the highest office in the land, to build upon what Shirley Chisholm did in 1972. After Harold Washington was elected Chicago's first black mayor in 1983, with concern mounting about the impact of Ronald Reagan's presidency on black Americans, some thought the time was perfect. But none of the most prominent black elected leaders would step up. Either they lacked courage or a big enough ego. Jackson lacked neither. That he ran and won 5 Democratic parties on a minuscule budget shocked the party establishment and elevated Jackson's stature. With his second presidential campaign in 1988, he established himself as the leader of the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. He won 11 primaries and finished as runner-up to Democratic nominee Michael Dukakis. Before Jackson's campaigns, blacks had been largely relegated to roles as campaign surrogates on urban issues and get-out-the-vote specialists in black communities. Jackson pried open the Democratic Party structure and helped increase black participation in politics. The result was more field operatives, strategists, fundraisers, and candidates for a wider range of offices than ever before. He pushed for changes in the party's nominating process that ultimately benefited Obama in his race against Hillary Clinton in 2008. As Jackson has faded from national prominence, with his image taking a pelting in recent years, it is easy to forget how electric he once was. It is not an overstatement to call him one of the greatest political orators in American history. His ability to inspire farmers and factory workers, maids who catch the early bus, and teenagers growing up in housing projects was unmatched. He certainly deserves credit for his civil rights activism in the Deep South as a prodigy of Martin Luther King Jr., and later on Wall Street and in Silicon Valley. But Jackson's most notable achievement was shaking up the American political system by helping reform a major party and demonstrating that occupying the Oval Office really was an attainable dream. Thank you for listening.
Hi, my name is Xavier Edwards, and today I'll be highlighting African-American influencer Mae Jemison. Mae Jemison was born October 17, 1965 in Decatur, Alabama. During her youth, she enjoyed books on science, especially astronomy. Although she originally pursued a medical profession, after only a few years she decided to chase her long-held dream of becoming an astronaut and applied for NASA's astronaut training program. She was admitted as one of 15 candidates out of 2,000 applicants in 1986, making her the first African-American woman accepted into NASA's astronaut training program. And in 1992, she was also the first African-American woman to fly into space aboard the Space Shuttle Endeavour. In her lifetime, Jemison was awarded the 1988 Essence Science and Technology Award and the 1992 Ebony Black Achievement Award, and has a public school in Detroit, Michigan named in her honor. After her tenure with Astronaut Corps in 1993, Jemison taught at Dartmouth College and later created the Jemison Group, a company promoting research, developing, and marketing strategies for advanced technologies, something that resonated with her greatly since her youth. Mae Jemison has demonstrated great strength and staunch perseverance, makes a dream become a reality.
Hi, my name is Randall Clay, and today I will be highlighting the life and legacy of a great American hero, Mr. Harry T. Moore. Harry T. Moore was a black man, an educator, and a civil rights advocate who helped establish the first branch of the NAACP right here in Brevard County. His activism predates the modern civil rights era, and he was ahead of his time in pushing for social justice and equal voting rights for all citizens. He was especially interested in addressing unequal salaries, segregated schools, and the disenfranchisement of black voters. He is recognized for single-handedly increasing the NAACP membership in Florida and spearheading the registration of thousands of African-American voters in the 1940s. In the Jim Crow South, the mere thought of voting could cost a black man his life. And Harry T. Moore traveled the back roads of Florida, registering voters north, south, east, and west. He was fearless in risking his life. In his early days, Mr. Moore moved to Cocoa, Florida, where he taught at the local Negro Junior High School. It was there where he experienced firsthand that separate but equal was not a reality for the black students. He worked diligently to right these wrongs, which included improving substandard facilities, obtaining better textbooks, and receiving adequate financial resources to support the students and the faculty. During this time, black students only received used textbooks and materials that were no longer suitable at the white schools. Many times these textbooks were missing pages and rendered useless before they even received them. Mr. Moore's fight to improve these conditions and the many other injustices that were imparted on African Americans during that time eventually led to his dismissal as principal of the Gibson High School in Titusville. In 1926, Harry Moore met the love of his life, Miss Harriet Sims. Two beautiful daughters, Annie Rosalie and Juanita Evangeline, were the offsprings of that union. Moore continued to fight for justice and equality by organizing the Florida State Conference of the NAACP in 1941. And in 1944, he formed the Florida Progressive Voters League. Now, through this organization, he helped register over 100,000 black voters for the Democratic Party here in Florida. It is believed that due to his continued involvement and persistent pursuit of justice in the Groveland 4 case, Mr. Moore had gone too far, and he had now become a marked man. On Christmas night in 1951, the Moores celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary. Little did they know this would be their last. A coward's bomb placed beneath the couple's bedroom went off in the quiet still of the night in Mims, Florida. This became known as the bomb heard round the world. Both Harry and Harriet Moore were fatally injured in the blast. Harry died on the 30-mile track to a hospital in Sanford, Florida. Unfortunately, at the time, the local hospitals did not serve colored people. His loving wife, Harriet, severely injured in the blast, survived long enough to attend his funeral. And tragically, she died a few days later from the injuries sustained from the blast. The state of Florida called in the FBI to head up the investigation, and as customary in those days, arresting, prosecuting, and convicting a white man in America for killing a black man was taboo, and even till today, those murders still go unsolved. Harry T. Moore has been called the first martyr in the civil rights movement. He is the first NAACP official to be assassinated in the civil rights struggle. This was even before Dr. King and even before Medgar Evers' assassinations. Mr. Moore and his wife were the first couple to be killed in America for standing up for the civil rights of people of color. Harry Tyson Moore was an amazing American hero. He fought relentlessly for equality in a time when a black person had little protection under the law. Harry T. and Harriet V. Moore paid the ultimate price in the pursuit of freedom and justice for all Americans. Today, we honor you, Mr. Harry Tyson Moore.
Hi, my name is Maria Parnell, and today I will be highlighting African-American influencer Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune. Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune was a distinguished educator, civil rights leader, and businesswoman. She was born to former slaves near Marysville, South Carolina on July 10, 1875. After graduating from a seminary boarding school in 1894, a rare opportunity for African Americans at that time, Mary went on to become an educator. In 1904, she established a boarding school for African American girls in Daytona Beach, Florida. In 1929, the boarding school merged with Cookman Institute and became Bethune-Cookman College. During the 1920s, Mary worked to register black voters and help them overcome barriers that prevented them from casting their votes. In 1935, she became the founding president of the National Council for Negro Women. In 1936, she became the highest-ranking African-American woman in government when President Franklin Roosevelt named her Director of Negro Affairs of the National Youth Administration, making her the first African-American woman female division head. During her tenure, Mary and others helped over 300,000 young black women and men obtain training and jobs through the National Youth Administration Program. In 1940, she became vice president of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored Persons, a position she held for the rest of her life. Mary also co-founded the United Negro College Fund in 1944, a program that awards scholarships, mentorships, and job opportunities to African American and minority students attending any of the 37 historically black colleges and universities. In addition to her public leadership, Bethune co-owned a Daytona, Florida resort and co-founded the Central Life Insurance Company of Tampa. Mary Bethune passed away in 1955. Throughout her lifetime, Mary used the power of political activism and education to help others achieve racial and gender equality. Her life was celebrated in a memorial sculpture in Lincoln Park, Washington, D.C. in 1974 and a postage stamp in 1985.
Hello, I'm Robert Allen, and today I will highlight African American influencer James Meredith. While our country made strides toward racial integration in the 1960s, including admitting a small number of African Americans to universities and colleges in the South, Meredith still found himself at the center of a controversy. Having served 9 years in the Air Force, he initially studied at Jackson State College, an all-black institution. However, he wanted to attend Ole Miss, the state-funded University of Mississippi. After applying repeatedly with no success, Meredith filed a lawsuit with the help of the NAACP, alleging that the university had discriminated against him because of his race. In 1962, the Supreme Court ruled in Meredith's favor. State officials in Mississippi, however, vowed to block his admission. Meredith arrived on campus under the protection of federal forces and still faced over 2,000 people gathered in protest. The chaos only ended after President Kennedy's administration sent over 30,000 soldiers to restore order. The university allowed Meredith admission, and he graduated in 1963. Although numerous struggles remained in higher education regarding integration, Meredith's persistence allowed for progress.
Booker T. Washington, April 5th, 1856 through November 14th, 1915. He was a prominent black educator, author, and leader in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. In 1868, 12-year-old Booker T. Washington found a job as a houseboy in the home of the wealthiest couple in Malden, General Lewis Ruffner and his wife Viola. Mrs. Ruffner was known for her high standards and strict manner. Washington was responsible for cleaning the house and other chores. He impressed Mrs. Ruffner, a former teacher, with his sense of purpose and a commitment to improving himself. She allowed him to attend school for 1 hour a day. He was enslaved from birth. Washington rose to a position of power and influence, founding the Tuskegee Institute in Alabama in 1881 and overseeing its growth into a well-respected black university. His published works include Up from Slavery, The Story of My Life and Work, The Story of the Negro, The Rise of the Race from Slavery, My Larger Education, and The Man Farthest Down. His honors include first black American to receive an honorary degree from Harvard University in 1896, as well as the first black American invited to dine at the White House with President Theodore Roosevelt in 1901. Thank you, Booker T. Washington.